Hi, welcome back to Your Story Medicine. I am your host, Juma Kay, and today I am with Lilia Tarawa. Lilia is a New Zealand Maori #1 best-selling author and transformational speaker whose personal story has inspired millions of people around the world to speak their truth and claim their power. Her #1 best-selling memoir, Daughter of Gloriavale, My Life in a Religious Cult, was written in 4 months part-time around her daytime job. And then her TEDxTalk, which is entitled, I Grew Up in a Cult. It Was Heaven and Hell, just reached over 9 million views on YouTube and achieved one of the top 5 most viewed TEDx Talks in the world in 2008. And it's also been transcribed in multiple languages, so there's no excuse if you cannot watch it. She apparently, I just learned, is the same height as me. And I think that this is important to name because we have been friends virtually for just about over a year now. And I'm just like, oh, we're actually the same height. And I could have sworn that you would be a lot taller than me in person. And a little background, Lilia and I have been supporting each other in our dreams of being able to serve other women who are overcoming adversities in their lives so that they can create a new story and a new reality for themselves. So who better to have today's conversation with of being rooted in times of change than Lilia. So welcome, Lilia.
Kia ora, thanks June. No mai haere mai to everybody out there. It's really lovely to be here.
So Lilia, tell us more about where is it you're calling from, and also in your own words, how would you describe your medicine?
I'm calling from Christchurch, New Zealand. So we in Maori it's Otatahi. That's the original name of where I'm calling from. In a beautiful wee valley, nestled in the hills, sheep grazing on the grass, birds singing in the trees. Is absolutely beautiful. It's like I call this place the oasis. So that's where I live. I'm quarantined at home, as most of you are. And in terms of medicine, like what's keeping me well at the moment, it's painting, it's being patient, it's art, creativity, really diving into what makes me and allowing that a place and a space to really flourish where I am at the moment.
Okay, and also I want to acknowledge that we are recording this live on both Facebook and Instagram. And I just want to name that on Instagram, people are saying that they can't hear you.
Oh no, you can't hear me on Instagram. So let's see. Try this now. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. And there's a little bit of feedback, so I'll turn that down, but I believe that they should be able to hear me.
Yay! Now. Cool. Yes, I hear myself a little bit, so maybe turn down your volume all the way. Because
the volume's all the way turned
down.
Great.
Okay,
cool. Try that. Awesome, great. Okay, cool.
Perfect audible.
Yeah, perfectly audible. Love it. That's right down now on Instagram. So that volume should be good now.
Yay, because we love you all so much. We just want to be able to make this conversation as accessible, regardless of what platform we're on. So we're good to go on Instagram. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so this next question is my favorite. What is your ancestral lineage, and how is it influencing the way you are showing up today?
I'm New Zealand Māori. My mother is from Australia originally, and my father is Māori. How it influences like the way I am today in every way. Like I live in a country that where my Māori cultural language is a national language, so it's acknowledged as. It's there is Māori in like everywhere we look. In our culture here in New Zealand, it labels the signs when you walk into libraries. It's taught to our children in school, and it's a huge part of our country's history. A lot of Maori rights were developed around the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Treaty of Waitangi, which is which was basically the peace treaty between the Maori and the settlers during the early wars in New Zealand. So, like, being Maori is like very much in our everyday life here in New Zealand. And for me, that's really wonderful, being able to live in a country where I feel like I can see pieces of myself around. That really gives me a deeper sense of where I belong and how I fit into the society, which I think is very, very important for our communities, and for us to be able to give our young people and our children to be able to see their culture all around them and as a part of everything that they are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. If I look at my history, I wasn't actually allowed to identify as being a Māori for most of my life. So in my upbringing, my grandfather was very racist towards Māori, and he didn't really want us to be learning much Māori at all. So we only learned some very basics that we had to learn because of the school system. But other than that, I did not grow up with the Māori language being a language that I was around. I was publicly humiliated by church leaders for being Māori. And so this was something that I never felt like I was interested in or wanted to learn about, because one, no one ever told me, and two, it was actually a bad thing. So coming out of that environment, growing up, becoming an adult, part of me going, well, who am I? Where do I fit? Where do I belong? How do I belong to myself? What makes me me has been exploring my language. So I took a block course in Te Reo Māori to learn what that language was all about, and it gave me such a deeper connection to our culture in terms of how we see the world. And I think language is a doorway into like a completely new worldview. And a worldview which I felt like aligned with me much better than Western Christianity did, which was what I was raised in, fundamental Christianity. So now I feel like I have a deeper sense of a connection with nature, because Māori were people of the land, like tangata whenua. We refer to ourselves as people of the land. We call our children tamariki, which it doesn't just mean children, it means a spark of light. It talks more about the joy, the essence of life all around us, the vitality, and I believe that's what the language has given me. In sense of my personal self-esteem, I started wearing my natural Māori curls, because with Western beauty came this idea of perfectly straight hair, and what the beauty standards were different. Whereas for centuries, Māori had like worn hair naturally. And so I stopped straightening my hair, stopped using heat tools on my hair. And I think I haven't used heat tools for 2 years now. I've only worn my hair natural and curly. That in itself is a real boost of confidence for me as a person. Like, here I am, got my natural curls, and it's me, and I feel comfortable in it, and I don't have to be anything different than what I am. That sends a message to myself every single day about where I stand in terms of my personal identity. So that would be, yeah, an overview of where I am at with being a Māori.
So people know you as this cult survivor, and you speak very openly about it in your TEDx talk and also in your book. And I know that since we started connecting, it's been this journey for you to reclaim your own ancestral heritage, being Maori, and being able to let your hair just be free. And what's coming to me is what happens for our own people, for our own ancestors, to feel like their culture and their language and their relationship with the land is not enough, or that it is a sin to even having these kinds of conversations. And also, what is the journey of reclamation after being told for most of your life that you're going to hell if you do those things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or if you like, you look at Maori history, like we were colonized, and for a lot of us, we're not only Maori, like we're Maori and European, we're Maori and Australian, we're Maori and Portuguese and South African. Like there's so many different ethnicities mixed up in New Zealand culture here, and so we do have to kind of look at the history of what happened and why there was so much change, why there was a lot of racism towards Maori. Like there was this, the societies were trying to integrate, and with integration there is always a sense of loss in some areas, because you're taking something and putting something else in there. You're going, this fits, this doesn't fit. And with colonizing, what happens often along the way is that things that have been around for a long, long time get lost because new come in. And so a lot of the work that the Maori leaders in our communities do, it's about preservation of our land, about preservation of our language, about preservation of our traditions and how they're incorporated into everyday life. But that starts by people seeing that there is change needed, and being aware of the ways in which we're being colonized. And I believe that begins with the individual, and it's about looking at you in your life and thinking about, well, where am I buying into colonization? Where am I buying into consumer? Where am I buying into these Western ideals, which are perhaps not where my heritage is from? And how can I make room for them and my Indigenous culture? Because it's not saying one is better than the other, but how can we have both in our lives at the same time and honor and preserve both? So that would be where I would like look at in my life. Well, how can I teach Māori to my younger sisters, to my niece? How can I use it in my everyday language? But then how can I teach them about business online and entrepreneurship at the same time? Because that's westernization, that is colonization, it's not to do with my Māori heritage. And I really think it's this embrace that in this dance that we're in, embracing both, dancing with both, and knowing that this is how we're evolving at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like the tools of the internet right now and of the Western world are an opportunity for us to preserve some of our ancestral teachings or our practices, or to reclaim them if we are just starting on this journey.
Yeah.
And I also
Yeah.
feel like with everything that's unfolding right now, it is a call to action to return to those very things, because what we once thought was normal has been completely disrupted. And I feel like there's people like you and the other guests who I've brought on to this series who are just approaching this time with joy and pleasure, and as if this is the invitation for us to actually be still and to reconnect with our ancestors and the land. Because if we stray away from just the fear that we're being inundated with in the news, then we can look at Mother Nature as having a grand party right now, and we're not invited. We just need to stay put and stay in our lane as she heals herself. Actually, yes, so that we can also heal ourselves, because I think so many of us have been annoyingly sick, and I'm just not talking about with specific physiological illnesses, but spiritually, mentally. And it's a test right now, and we can either step up to take that challenge or fall victim to the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I really understand right now that people are scared, and that there's a lot of fear in the environment we live in. People are experiencing way higher levels of stress and anxiety. There's more financial stress on people. And I get it. Like, I was raised in an environment where fear was used as a tool to control us. Like, we were raised in a religious cult. And right from the very beginning of my life, I remember being told stories that the world was going to end. So, interestingly, for us as doomsday cult and doomsday religion survivors, we're really used to being told that the world's going to end. This is the end of the human race. Like, we're like, welcome, the rest of the world's here now, experiencing what we have known for all of our lives. So these times, yes, they're changing, yes, they're uncertain, but in a way, we're really used to knowing how to deal with these situations. And that's a conversation I've had with a lot of my ex-cult survivor friends, because, like, we have lived with panic attacks, with anxiety, with fear all of our lives. And so now I'm very, very interested in how do we now look at how we can use the tools and skills that us as survivors have used to thrive post fear and in fear to actually survive, which is the number one priority. That's why we call ourselves survivors. So number one, to survive, but then how do we lift ourselves back up after? And what are the tools, the mental skills, the attitudes, the things that we've got to do in order to move forward now during this time and after? Because what we know about fear is that it leaves an imprint. And so the first step that I really want to invite people to take is to, like, just be really careful about the information that you're consuming. Like, in the world where I grew up, we were not allowed to access to media, television, everything that we consumed in terms of the content we read, the talks we listened to, the beliefs that we had were very controlled. And in a way, when I came out of that environment, I looked at the world and I thought, well, the media is doing the same thing. You know, we can look at the media and we can choose what we want to read. We don't just have to buy into this, well, let's read the thing that's got the sensationalist title on it that really captures and draws us in. So I think there first comes an amount of personal responsibility in terms of how much we're buying into the fear, how much we're buying into the panic, because that is always a choice. Like, it's always a choice what type of religion you choose to believe in. Sometimes for a lot of us, those choices have been taken from us to an extent because we were taught things from childhood when we're in a very vulnerable, impressionable stage in our lives. And so I think it's really important right now at this point is that we look at our children and our tamariki and we say, well, how can we teach them that this is an opportunity, that how can we prepare the world for them when we come out of this? How can we give them skills and mindsets that will actually allow them to thrive in times like this?
So tell us more about what it is you're personally doing to stay grounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, what is it that you're learning to release as a result?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, like, the thing is, we all know what we need to do already. So I'm not here to tell anybody anything new or ask you to do anything different. I'm just asking you to do what you already know you could be doing. Like, what is it that keeps you well? We know it's good nutrition. We know it's exercise. We know these things, and that's the starting point. Like, one thing that has kept me stable through changing times in my life has been to always exercise. And I've been through periods in my life where I did not want to get out of bed, and some periods where I couldn't get out of bed, and that's okay too. But do what you can right now. Like, even if it's just a walk, even if it's just a stretch, like, I think one really important thing for me that I learned through living with intense fear, and how to care for myself through that, is that what you can do is good enough, and it doesn't have to be the biggest goal in the world that you have to achieve to be okay and be good enough. So you don't have to do some 30-day boot camp challenge if that's not what you're up to. Like if you just want to get up each morning, stretch, go for a walk, breathe in fresh air, listen to the birds sing, that is enough as well. So exercise, good food, relationships. Like we're social creatures. And right now we're in a period of time where we are so isolated from each other. We're missing each other. Like I feel really lonely being at home because I come from a really big family and I terribly miss my sisters. So what I'm doing is picking up the phone, hanging out with my sisters for a couple of hours where I can, helping them with their schoolwork, talking to them about what's going on in their life, asking them how they're feeling, like how are they coping with isolation, being stuck at home with mum and dad. And we've got opportunities to be there for each other, but in the same way, be there for ourselves because we're giving ourselves connection. One thing that often happens with mental illness is when you're feeling down, when you're not feeling well, you want to draw away, you want to isolate, you want to shut down, lock down, keep yourself safe. And I'm really saying we've got to open up. When I was struggling with a terrible depression and anxiety, one thing that I was doing, because I knew that it was good for me, was telling people that I'm not okay. And that's okay to do. Picking up the phone, calling a friend, saying, I need support, and letting people be there for you. So there's that. And then there's my creativity, my art. So I've spent a lot of time painting and using this as actually as an opportunity to be quiet, to find space and time to do those things that I've always loved since I was a really little girl. When I was in kindergarten, we called it preschool, I used to get these shapes and to make like beautiful little flowers and that with these little foam shapes. And I remember the teachers took a photo of this flower that I made and they put it up on the wall, and I was so proud of myself as a little girl that I'd created this beautiful thing that other people were admiring. And I think now as an artist, I'm using this time to take my art, finish it, edit it, put it up online so people can buy it. So I'm using this as an opportunity to do something productive for myself and for my income, but also something that's really fulfilling to my soul and to my creative spirit.
Yeah, I think one of the major things that a lot of us are being invited to release is this guilt of staying
Oh,
home
yeah,
and of
yeah,
doing the things that are pleasurable to us because maybe we equated it to not being productive or
yeah,
being childish. And it's like, that's the best thing you can do right now for your mental health. And how is it that you can create without being attached to an outcome like, or I need to start a business right now, or I got to find a way to write my best-selling book, or
yeah,
or launch this idea that has been bubbling inside of me this whole time, and then feeling guilty about not even following through with that, versus just
yeah,
surrendering and allowing ourselves to explore this new part of ourselves that has been dormant because we have all been busy just on the go. And a lot of that is
yeah,
rooted in trauma as well as colonization, as
mhm,
if rest is not considered
yeah.
productive.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that the personal development industry perpetrating this a lot. Like when I came out of the cult and then I was part of the world, it was like get an education. That's what you've got to do. That's the goal, right? Um, and then it was like once you get an education, then you need to get a good job. And like, we hear these narratives over and over, and they're the ones that are given to us through social media and perpetrated like through social media. We've got this place where people can share their own success and market their businesses. And what marketers have a really bad habit of doing is making other people feel bad for where they're at. so that you want to be where now I'm at, so you buy my product or service. And that, I just find that really, really unethical. Like, using guilt as a tool to get results from people is not a positive, it's not a positive way to support and encourage the human spirit to thrive. And I've grown up in an environment where, I talk about in my TED talk, the leaders of the church and my parents used guilt and shame to get results from us, to make sure we did do this, didn't do that. And what I've had to do is really strip that back and go, we don't do that anymore. Like, have a conversation with myself. Like, I'm not buying into the guilt anymore. Like, if I'm feeling bad about feeling good at home, like, fuck that. Like, I'm allowed to feel good. I give myself permission to feel amazing and happy. And I think because the world's going through such a challenging time at the moment, we feel bad for feeling good. It's like when you maybe lose a loved one, right? You lose someone that you love, you bury them, put them in the ground, and then you're grieving. And you are finding joy, though, in some areas of the life. And when joy pops up, you think, no, this terrible thing's happened. I'm not allowed to feel that. And what I'm really learning through my life is how to make room for all of the range of emotions that we feel. How do I sit with my pain? How do I sit with my fear? How do I put my arm around it? And how do I notice where I'm experiencing joy too? And how do I let the joy come in as well without invalidating the negative that I'm feeling too? And I really have a problem with the way that the personal development industry has often, in some ways, taken out of perspective this idea of gratitude and gratefulness. And it's been overused in terms of be positive, be happy, to the point where people feel they can't even be sad anymore. And sadness is a completely normal human thing to be. And I'm really here to say, well, let's welcome all of it. Let's welcome the fear and the anxiety, the angst, the stress that I'm feeling. Let's welcome the moments that I'm finding joy and peace and calm, the ways that I'm seeing and finding opportunity. Like, let's find equilibrium, not just live on one side of the fence. Let's learn to live in the gray area. So a lot of what I have been releasing is, I release the need to disregard my negative feelings and only have positive feelings. I release the need to only have negative and no positive. I make room for both. So these are the mindsets and the attitudes that create resilience. They allow us flexibility to bounce back during times of change. And that is really what we need right now.
So let's talk more about the importance of seeing this moment as a time of change versus a crisis or a pandemic, because adversity is something that's not new to you. Of course, I don't think it's anything that's new to any of us. Maybe it's been so normalized, especially being here in Western countries, that this is just tenfold and we're feeling it on a collective level. So what is a ritual or practice or any words of wisdom you have to share so that we can reframe this experience while also not disregarding the real challenges that we have at hand?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the thing is, like, this is a pandemic. Like, it is a crisis. It's a world crisis. That's the reason we've shut down. Like, we're isolated, we're in quarantine. It's okay for it to be that too. Like, it is what it is. I think the thing is that there's been so much media about it, and like, we've just been inundated with this fear-mongering news. And a lot of it is, it's relevant and it's true. That's okay. So now let's acknowledge that and let's say, this is real, and how can we stand on our feet during this time? How can we bounce back? What are some tools and skills that we can use? I think your mindset is a really important one. It's And that starts with awareness, and that's why I really recommend yoga. And we've seen yoga a lot in the online world at the moment too. Yoga, though, isn't just getting on the mat and doing some stretches or doing a workout. Like, yoga is really a belief system. It's an approach to how we live. It's about noticing how I'm breathing right now, stopping, noticing how's my body feeling. It's checking in, and it's the first step is awareness, developing awareness. Once you have awareness, you have more power to make a change, to do something about what's going on. Whereas if you're unaware of something, everything happens to you, and you don't have any sort of say in what's going on. And what we really want to do is get back into a place where we're standing in our power, where we can make decisions from a place of confidence. So developing awareness through yoga is an amazing first tool. Another piece of yoga is the time we take out, like the time we take out for ourselves and for our wellness, the commitment to our bodies, to our souls and our spirits, the commitment to dedicate time to that. And so that is checking out of social media, checking out of the world for a while, and finding a quiet space where you can just practice being you. And maybe that means reading a book or watching a movie, something that makes you happy. Like, notice what gives you joy, what really floats your boat, what makes you just full and alive. I think those are two practices that you can start doing today to really stop buying into this fearmongering that we're seeing everywhere. And yes, it's real. Yes, this virus is a terrible thing we're dealing with at the moment, and we can still be strong. We can still be okay through it all.
Yeah, one of the things that I love to do whenever I'm stressed or even to start off my day is put on my rollerblades and go down the beach. And we have a really steep hill
Yeah,
here in Long Beach, California, and I just love
yeah,
climbing it and
yeah.
feeling this exhilaration, like I'm such a badass. And it's that adrenaline that it's the
It's
adrenaline that I'm
awesome.
addicted to. But the beach
Yeah.
access has been closed. Nobody's out there skating right now. If they are, people are giving them the side eye. And
Mm.
we're just all kind of these zombies right now, trying to find some sense of normalcy. And I
Yeah.
miss that feeling, that adrenaline, because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the adrenaline that I'm addicted to. It's what I feel afterward. I feel a release. I feel
Mm.
a flow. And because we're at home, I've been returning back to my meditation practices, which I've resisted. And
Mm.
within 10 to 20 minutes of me in my stillness, I get that
Mm.
same feeling, that
Yeah.
flow. And
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, it's taken a pandemic for for me to return to this practice of stillness, to realize that this feeling is accessible to me at all times.
Yeah.
And if I can ground myself in moments like this, then how is this going to support me in any other adversity I face in my life, whether it
Yeah.
comes in the
Absolutely.
form of another pandemic or people who
Yeah.
throw me off balance?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Who I would really love to interview is your prime minister, because I feel like New
Yeah.
Zealand is hosting right now through all of this,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, what is it about their country that
Yeah.
that stands out? You know, is it because it's run by a woman? Like, what is up with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, like, she's amazing. Like, she's done a really good job. Like, because she's had to deal with also the massacres that we had here not too long ago. And she handled that with absolute grace, absolute dignity. I feel quite proud, like, to have her as our leader at the moment. And in all honesty, I'm a little afraid for America and their leadership at the moment. Like,
Thanks.
I'm like, some things I say, my mouth just like drops open. I'm like, this can't be real. Is this a joke?
We're coming to your country. If Canada doesn't let us in, we're going to New Zealand.
Massive migration. I don't know if you'd all fit. It's pretty little. Yeah, but I don't know. Like I would just say, like, for all my, it makes me afraid for the world too. Like that we have leaders in power who are sexist, racist, have absolute lack of respect, who don't love on and care for the people as they should. That concerns me. And so that is a valid fear. And yet we do have world leaders that are making change. We have other leaders in power who are standing up to that. And that's what it takes. It takes other people saying, this isn't okay. We don't tolerate this. This is not good enough for us as a leadership. We need better.
Well, until then, I guess that the best that I can do is embody that for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think that it's important that all of us remember that nobody outside of ourselves can save us. It must begin with us. It must begin with our practices. And one of the most radical things we can do right now is to breathe, is to feel our lungs, is to be fully in our bodies. And even though that there are real consequences that may happen based off of the decisions that someone else makes on our behalf, that we still have control over this vessel at the very least. And I feel that if we are doing this work to care for ourselves, it is also becoming the lessons for the next generation so that they don't have to carry on this fear as well.
And like everything we're doing now, like everything we do as an individual, the philosophies we share with our family and in our community, that all perpetuates the type of society that we live in. And that type of society, it chooses the leadership that we have. And so I really feel like if you feel like, whoa, this is all out of my control, I can't change all this, just look at where you can make a change at the moment. Like if it's small, if it's with one person, that's good enough. If it's with your little sister, if it's with a good friend, if it's with your mum or your dad, just have those conversations if you're wanting to see change happen.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest breakthroughs for me on my journey, is that if you want to witness change, look at your environment first. Start with your home, start with yourself, and then reflect that back to your loved ones, especially if you're quarantined at home right now with somebody else, because that will be the reflection of how it is we are going to walk out of this to be a part of changing what this paradigm is going to look like. So Lily, what is one action you would like to invite our listeners to take, and where is it that people can go and find you?
Oh, one action. Do you know what? I would say one action that I would like to invite everyone who's listening to this to do is go and do one thing this week that really makes you happy.
Without guilt.
Without guilt. For the joy of it. For the enjoyment. Not because it's going to get you somewhere. Not because it's the right thing to do. Just because it makes you insanely happy. And then in terms of anyone who would like to connect with me, I think online connection is so important at the moment. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the major platforms.
You're on TikTok now.
I've been doing little duets with my sisters. I'm like, I'm going to duet with you.
What I would say is that if anybody feels called to do the thing that brings them joy without attachment to an outcome or what that's going to look like, and you do choose to share it out with the world on social media, you can tag myself at Jumoke or Lilia, and we want to be able to share that joy with others, because I feel like that is the contagion that we need more of.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally want to see you doing what you love. Even if it's shaking your booty all over the lounge. Get into it.
Yes. And then also, if you all want a quarantine read, go and pick up Lilia's book. Um, unless it's
Oh
going to
yeah.
trigger
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Oh, I've had people messaging me like, your book's the first book I've read in quarantine. Like, it's amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, you can absolutely go read my book. It's on my website. If you just go Lilia Tarawa Books, or you can find it on Amazon, Kobo, Google Books, all the big platforms.
Hmm. Well, Lilia, thank you so much for sharing space with me. And also, thank you for doing the work to make your ancestors proud, because I know that you have gone through so much in this lifetime, and yet to still be able to rise and be able to claim that you are proud of your origins and where it is you
Yeah.
come from, and to be a
Yeah.
stand for others into stepping into that despite the repercussions is the medicine that so many of us need right now. So thank you for just being you.
Always.